Hello, I'm your host, Effie Pilarino, and today we are going to have a lot of fun, so prepare to enjoy this session like you've never enjoyed the session before. I am delighted to have with us Ian Foley. Foley, is that the right way I pronounce
That's
your
right.
name? Welcome,
Great to be
Ian.
here, Effie.
And I don't know if you speak French, but in French, you know, folie, it's like craziness, right? And folie is actually a brand of jewelry too. So, you know, we are here to have a lot of fun. And this is connected with Silicon Valley, since you have lived there for over 20 years, as I understand from looking at your bio. I want to share with our audience that I came across your work on Twitter. I am delighted that I ran across it, and I picked one of your fantastic cartoons to include in an article. We'll mention that later. But first of all, I want to hear from you your journey, because you, I understand, have been in finance, in tech, you've been in Silicon Valley, and today you are with the Web3 initiative. So you've done a lot of different things in your career. I know you're also an entrepreneur, a venture investor. So tell us a little bit about that background, and then we can talk about your current work that interests you.
Sure. Very briefly, I'd love to chat more about fintech and stuff. So briefly, my background came out to Silicon Valley, 25 years ago. And the first third of that was, as I call, helping other people be successful. So that was in investment banking, venture capital, strategy consulting. So that was helping other people, helping their companies be successful. I thought, well, I've done that. How about I do my own? So I then decided to spend the next, I suppose, third of my time out here. I did startups, and I was either founder or a head of sales for 4 startups, all in areas like big data, AI, fintech, which we're talking about today. And then of those 4, we're lucky, I had some great people to work with. Of those 4, 3 were acquired through M&A, and one went public. The one I went public wasn't my company. I was simply head of sales for that one. But and then my final stage of my career, my last third, has already been, my last startup was a fintech company. I sold that to a PE fund. And then I've been working with a bunch of
Ian, let me interrupt you. What fintech, what kind of fintech, in what area was the focus?
Yeah, so this was it was called Acute IQ. And what we did is we identified signals of purchase intent of small business owners to understand if they were interested in, initially it was for lending. So we would know, for example, that a company was ready for a small business loan, and would give that as lead data. And the interesting story behind this is I started off thinking the best people for this data would be the new incumbents, you know, the Cabbages of this world. But actually, I found most of them like saying, well, I don't need your product. I've got my own, you know, web-based way to go and find leads. Actually, I found the most interesting people who took it on were the incumbents. So we got I got a relationship opportunity with Barclays, and then also with Chase, and really that became our I suppose vertical way in finance. And then the key was really actually why we got acquired was because we were able to prove that not only could our data be relevant for the banking industry, but also to insurance. And it's that kind of proving that you can go from one vertical to another vertical that became a reason why we were acquired. Because then people who saw us that, oh, I can not just do like fintech or finance and insurance, but also do telecoms, you could do all sorts of different types of industry products. They could sell this data on small business signals of buying intent for. So that was the company.
Very, very interesting. So this is another example where you find out that your product has many more applications or different applications and solves problems elsewhere than where you originally thought, right?
It is true. And actually, when I started the company, this is back in 2014, and at the time, it sounds it sounds funny nowadays, but at the time where we were a leader in the space of just being able to take unstructured data and then make it structured, and then on top of that, make it a vertically meet a vertical customer need and sell that, and that was enough. That was back in 2014 to 15, 16, 17, basically. Now that's not enough. Now that seems like table stakes, basically. Yeah. So the markets move so fast, and it actually when I was at the stage I ended up selling the company was because I actually was concerned that the company wasn't well placed for GDPR and everything else like that was coming down. So that there was, although I saw the opportunity at the forefront of AI, my concern was that the company wasn't the right place for the change in data laws going through.
Very interesting, very interesting. What you share with us. So I interrupted you, your journey. So what has happened in the last third of your career?
Yeah, so I've been helping out portfolio companies of private equity firms and VC companies, basically being an operating partner, dropping into companies to basically don't make the same mistakes I made. That's basically it. In sales and marketing. So spend a bit of work with a company called Uphold, which is a neobank, the leading neobank for the crypto space. And then was help them raise capital and also help them basically create a B2B to C model. And then most recently was at Credit Sesame, which was a fintech play, which was a direct to consumer, helping people improve their credit. And I was head of corporate development, and that was helping them make acquisitions and basically raise capital. And really that was like, well, we knew what our roadmap was and we could do with our core team. It's like, what could you do beyond that? That was the opportunity. And really our thinking was at the stage where Credit Sesame is that you can't just be a leader in your product. To be a true category leader, you need to be very good at acquiring other assets and basically building out breadth and be able to do that at scale and to do that with many different categories to become the category leader in that space. So corporate development at a certain stage, typically series C, D and beyond, is a core competency. And so basically I was brought in to help set up corporate development and
Ian, was that done through open banking, an open banking type of approach?
No, that was done through acquisition of other companies. So I'll give you one example. So what Credit Sesame does is we help people improve their credit score, so they can buy a home, get a car, whatever. So that's great. But the point is that the on-ramp, how do you get people in to this? And there's in America, there's about 40 million Americans who don't have a credit score. Those people are people out of university. There are people who are immigrants. A lot of people don't have credit scores. So how do you address that 40 million? Because they're not even touching us. So what I did is basically identified a company that could use your rent, your personal rent, as a way to go and build your credit score. Because the point is if you're paying rent on a regular basis, it's similar to basically demonstrates commitment and consistency that is relevant also to buying home. So that is a great, so we bought this company and that provided us with a new entry ramp into people who had no credit, could then get into that market. And with credit scoring, the way it works in the US is that if you report your rent, you can actually backdate your last year of rental payments. And that suddenly kicks up your credit score. So you can see a 20-30% increase in credit score just by adding that. So it's a huge win for consumers.
I got you. So today you are a Web3 person?
Yeah, yes. It seems to be another iteration of it's a new term, but yes, Web3 is seems to be a descriptive. Yeah, I focus on Web3 infrastructure. So
okay,
it's much
that's
more.
what I was going to ask you, because it's like this is such an umbrella term. So this is not about finance anymore. It's an infrastructure play.
It has an underlying finance piece to it, but I can explain that to you. But the way I look at it is that it's basically evolution of data. So data used to be on premises, then it went to the cloud, centralized cloud, and now this is decentralized cloud, kind of an evolution of where data resides. Now, there's the company I work for is called Arweave. It's a really interesting company. It's the forefront of basically enabling people to store data forever, a sense of permanent storage, which is kind of a very difficult concept to get your head around. So the use cases for this in everyday life are, first, on archival storage. If you're a library or a museum, you want to store things for a long time, thousands of years. If you're a bank and you want to store mortgage data, if you're in the pharmaceutical industry, you want to store like clinical research data. There's a lot of needs for long-term data storage. And what really intrigued me was Arweave's actual business model. So what's different about them, as opposed to everyone else like AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Azure, etc., you pay per month. So with Arweave, they had this thing called the endowment model. The endowment model is you pay into the endowment, and that enables basically principal remains basically as your solid battery of money, and then the income from that is what pays forever for that storage. And so that endowment model is a completely new way how to pay for storage. And this means forever. And the great thing about it is that it's set up in an automated fashion, so you never need to touch it again. And that also is very intriguing, is that like the ability to never have to pay once and store forever, and you pay once and don't need to manage it forever again, unless of course you want to remove it or access it. You can easily do that, but the managing of it is all automated. So it's kind of interesting, like in the same way that fintech, everything about this is how fintech's become embedded, kind of embedded fintech, or how it's become part of the sort of fabric of everyday life. Where I see this concept of storage and these new business models is how do you incorporate these new forms of business into everyday life. So that's the sort of the transition point I saw. I thought that the way Web3 infrastructure was going was as innovative in terms of how it's applied in the same way that fintech has been done the last 5 or 6 years.
Very interesting. I mean, the business model as you described it, independent of the fact that it is applying to storage on the cloud, I could start thinking about it in other contexts. And this is what is fascinating with these innovations, that they're opening doors to thinking and applying business models in different contexts. Like it's happened in other cases, pay as you go, for example, started in the cloud business and has been transported to other businesses too, right? So I find that really fascinating. So let's talk about how you've gone from, I think at some point you were involved at the Stanford Research Institute, and
that's right.
and now you are creating cartoons for Fortune magazine. Since when have you been doing this?
Yeah, so I suppose it began actually at university. I was trying to make some money so I could go and go to some really interesting events. Like I would try to get into like Wimbledon tennis championship. And I thought, how do I do this? I thought, hey, if I could be a journalist, I get in. There's a press pass. So I started writing and began a journey of writing. And then I thought, other thing is I want to get into the telecoms industry. It's my first industry I got into was telecoms. And telecoms was really difficult to get into, but I felt if I could write some articles about it, I could show to people in the industry that I had some knowledge. And so basically I got writing for It's called Telecoms Week International, TWI, and
This is when, Ian? This is how many years ago?
Gosh, in 1996. Gosh,
oh, wow.
Yes. And so I was writing away, and I was the upside was I got these like chance to interview these CEOs of these really fascinating companies like Alcatel, Ericsson, on a boat and Henley. You know, like I was a student, like with almost like trying to eat baked beans and sausages every day. Now I'd taken to like this amazing place and all great experience. So I loved it, and that was a fun way to be paid, basically, to learn about industry. So I kept writing, and then I kept writing, and I sort of wrote when I came to the States, and was writing again in telecoms, and I thought to myself about those 5 or 6 years ago. You know, increasingly my articles, another tree falling in the forest. Who gives a damn? You know, who really? I mean, maybe some of my friends may like it and things like that, but is it really moving the needle? I couldn't justify. I remember doing this, like, you know, there's heat analysis you can do on a page. You can tell you like what people do. And I remember doing this analysis. I found that people would read the first sentence. They'd like skip down. If I create a graphic, they look at the graphic, and then look at the last sentence. I thought, all this work for basically people are just like 1, 2, 3, boom, they're done. And so I thought, this I've got to change it. I thought, why don't I instead try and find something? And I kind of focused in areas which are tech. You know, I focus in like, I went from telecoms to like big data and things like that. So it's like difficult subjects people to grasp. And so I thought, people talk about a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I thought, like, well, let's see where we go with this. And so I started to like doodle and create some ideas. And I thought, let's move it into the cartoon. And I also thought one of the companies I was involved with was in the ad tech space. So I kind of understood the concept of a 300 by 250 ad unit. I thought, like, if I could create a small image that is as small as a 200 by 250 ad unit, and it can be placed everywhere. That's just as compelling as like an ad. One of my articles being placed in different publications. I thought that's really interesting. And then I also thought, you know, with Facebook, you know, what Facebook does nowadays, incredible how they're able to basically, you know, use these small images and basically place. I thought I could use cartoons as a way basically to basically get more readership than I would by just trying to get in one publication, you know. So that was it, and I started on the journey from that.
So did you take some type of course to learn how to sketch, or you come up with the idea and you have a designer who does the sketch?
So I came up with the idea. I have an illustrator who helps. Like, my coloring skills are terrible. I mean, basically, I'm really useless at coloring. But I do need to give credit to an illustrator who I work with, who's very good at like adding the color, the things that pop out. But the sort of the drawing, the idea it's all me. But it's that last bit that I find that I just don't have his eye for like adding color.
Ian, I mean, I picked your cartoon, which was showing, and I hope I do justice to it, a tiger, and the tagline was whether the tiger is grooming or sort of what's it called, sharpening its nails, right?
Yeah.
And I used that in an article about what Tiger Global is doing with its venture capital activities, and you know, whether in this downturn it is really sharpening its nails or grooming and so on. And I mean, I've looked at your cartoons. It seems to me that, of course, crypto is kind of screaming at you, please, you know, cover me, please do more about me. But you do a lot around venture capital and capital allocation. I saw some very interesting cartoons around business models that I found quite funny. So would you share with us some of the topics that you know inspire you, or how you go about them, maybe some examples?
Yeah, sure. So I'll explain the process as a whole. So I'm quite busy during the week with my day job, and so it's like, what do I on the weekends? I live in California, and I really enjoy a couple of things. I really enjoy paddleboarding and running and surfing. So normally, I like on Friday, the end of the week, I'll try and spend an hour or two just going through. And maybe during the week, I've put aside some ideas from articles or newsletters, and I'll like spend like Friday afternoon thinking, like, let's try and find something here, just something. And I often find that if I think of something in a small way, my brain ticks away, and if I over a couple of days, it will come up with something. So then the next day, Saturday, I'll often exercise. I'll go for a run or paddleboard or whatever. Something. And as I'm doing that, I think, what is it? How can I like add something around this idea? And normally my ideas come from one or two directions. Either I have an idea, and I think, okay, well, that's the idea. What's a good way to illustrate that? Or I have an idea of an illustration. I think, like, what would be a great way to bring something which is topical to that idea? So it's like it's trying to be topical, but trying to often come in different angles. And sometimes I have an idea, and I thought, this is a useless idea. I need to discard this one. And sometimes the end of the weekend, I'm thinking, damn, I really need to come up with something quick. I try and like, by the end of the weekend, I feel like I have to get it done. It's like writing, as I was doing the journal. So you have to find a way to, and sometimes my family are very forgiving. I say, I'm sorry, I can't do X, or I just need to like sit down and work through this. And then I often will start with the illustration, or I'll start with the description. So I have, with each of my cartoons, I have probably about 50 or 70 words of content, and the content normally gives some context to the cartoon, because I often realize that not everyone understands the cartoon in of itself, and maybe a description could help provide some context and some further thinking around that cartoon. And so and my cartoons are generally designed as I say, laugh and learn is the core concept of what I'm trying to do here. Is like, these are difficult subjects. I cover things like, as you said, business models. I cover things like quantum technology, AI. This is not easy to understand. I mean, I go through my own journey trying to understand them.
I saw simple things like you had the Titanic, and instead of being named Titanic, it's named Tether. And but as you said, not everybody knows what Tether is, right? Even if they are in tech and innovation, not necessarily. And there's even more complicated subject matters, especially around funding, that unless you have some context about what's going on in the market, it might be difficult to understand.
Yeah, so that's actually what the challenge is. So I do two types of cartoons. I do the cartoons I publish weekly, and those are published on social media. I also publish them in a number of fintech publications. But that's what I do weekly. Though, and for that one, I have both the cartoon and the description. For Fortune, I publish with them monthly. And for that one, they really challenged me. Actually, it was good. I like it. They said, no, we really want you to just do the cartoon. That's it. So how do I express myself and express a complex topic in just the words between the two key actors who I'm using? And also they kind of didn't want me to have a lot of description below. It was like it had to be the dialogue between the two characters, and so that's been challenging to do, and to think about new ways to like how to bring context and then use a dialogue. That's been challenging to work through, and then but I like it. It's good. It's kind of,
as Oscar Wilde said, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter. And I'm sure you're like, you might spend 4 or 5 hours, and somebody sees a visual and a sentence, and it takes time. But I must say that when I saw your logo, Ian, the way it is, it looked to me like the mantra "I am." And I don't know if you know, there's anything around that, you know, around the spiritual journey or anything, or is it me reading into that? It has that.
I'll give you full credit. I had no, I wasn't. It was simply often when I when I write my name to my family, I'll often like put a flower on top of my eyes, like so circle and some petals around it. So, it was, I thought that would be particularly be a step too far. So I thought just put my eye and a dot on top. So
no, but it is the AN the way it is, and
I see.
To me it is I am. So you know, it has a lot of how can I say, you're being really authentic here. And that you know, I think has a lot of value these days, and you're doing it by including, you know, what you're experiencing in business, but also there's a social aspect that I see here. And what I want to ask you is, you know, living in Silicon Valley, obviously you are immersed in the culture, the business culture, and in general, the culture there, the trends in technology and so on. How have you felt the change, and has there been any change over the last, you know, let's say 10 years with all this digitalization, with fintech, you know, what we call fintech today, that's been going on for at least 10 years at an intense pace, even though we didn't call it fintech. Has Silicon Valley really changed?
Well, I can say this just on the, I suppose, the people I know out here has changed. So when I first came out here as a Brit, I was probably one of the few Brits who wasn't an engineer. A lot of the time, back in the late 90s, it was very engineer-centric. Literally the last 10 years, there's been a huge increase, particularly because of the fintech, of a lot of people who are like business people, marketing people, product people from the UK and other coming over to Silicon Valley. So I'd say that that's the just on a people basis, you're seeing it's a lot less purely engineering. I think that's a reflection of the technologies that have been enabled to enable much easier distribution, and it's not just creating hardware tech, it's like creating the other layers of the stack further up and the application of all layers. And so therefore you're beginning to see a lot more people involved who can come in from that background and be part of the Silicon Valley building, the capabilities that are being built out here. But it's still, to this day, amazes me, Silicon Valley, just the sheer amount of investment that gets pumped in. I remember doing, I think, a recent analysis of like $120 billion at least of venture investment gets pumped in annually into this in environment. I mean, that's a vast underestimation, perhaps, but and that's just venture capital. So that amount of money being pumped in does attract really smart people, brilliant people who've and the key thing is people stay doing it. They don't like, I've done one and gone. They're excited about wanting to make change and make change on a bigger level, from the do one, let's do another one, let's do a third, let's do a fourth, etc. And really that talent pool is super impressive. Right now, for example, I'm looking to hire someone from my own company in product marketing. It's really, I'm just stunned how many people, when you look around the world, where are the best product marketers? They all seem to be here in cloud. They're all here. I was hoping to find someone in other parts of the world. It's really difficult to find someone that expertise. And I think that's the draw. The draw is still there for Silicon Valley. Yes, people are moving away. Yes, people are spending time living in other cities, but still that's the locus of activity is out here still.
Very interesting. So diversity in human capital is definitely one of the main points that you're telling us. And on the other hand, there hasn't been a lot of dilution in terms of the amounts of capital that are coming out of there. Then at the end of the day, the decision making and the ecosystem that helps create all the innovation that has been created. It's very interesting to me that the ecosystem that can grow out of one entrepreneur and one very successful company, and then, you know, all the people that go off, whether they're employees and create new companies. There's a whole, you know, flower with petals that you know, is created and can grow out of that. And we've seen it in other areas, but it seems to me that Silicon Valley, despite the global competition, remains a very strong hub. So what is top of mind right now for your cartoons? And of course, with our audience, I will share all your links so they can find you.
Okay. Yeah, so I was thinking actually over the weekend, because I wanted to think about it on a cartoon, and I've been trying to think about one. I try and like orientate between like a quantum one, or one about AI, one about venture, and at the moment I'm really trying to think about one which is, you know, around quantum. That's one area I'm trying to get my head around. It's I've done a few in that area, and people should check them out. But that's the one area I'm trying to like understand better.
More. I mean, it's a tough area. I can't. Yeah. I'm not an expert in that area, and it must be tough to come up with sort of humor around that is kind of understood, at least, yeah, you know, more than the geeks that you know, this, or the experts in that area, right?
Yeah, sometimes I do end up creating a cartoon, which I did one just last week, because I'm on risk managers and fintech, and that one was like bit out there, because, you know, the average fintech person is you know, very averse, I suppose, to risk managers, about the opposite end of the spectrum to most people in the fintech space. But I felt that there is opportunity in the industry for us, I suppose, to avoid, you know, regulatory, like the heavy hand of a regulator with lots of unintended consequences that may result in, to instead try and regulate ourselves, and how, if we want to do that, risk managers and hiring for good risk managers, not just hammers looking for nails of no, you know, type thing.
Yeah, yeah, or puppets that will do whatever the CEO says, and sort of not stand up and say, look, these are the best practices. We don't need to wait for the regulators to, you know, put us in jail or fine us.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a topic which is so I needed to write the topic because I don't want to get it out there and share this idea. But as evidence, it didn't catch on fire, because not everyone wants to like be liking or like really appreciating a cartoon about risk managers. But so that's the sort of sometimes the play I have to, the thing I want to write, because I feel like I really want to talk about it, because I think it's important people discuss it. But well,
I understand, because you are exposing sort of, you know, stuff that a certain part of the innovators want to hide, right?
Yeah,
not discuss, right?
Or maybe there's something more interesting to go and click on or like than think about risk managers.
Well, I mean, before we close, I have to ask you, how many cartoons have you made inspired by Robin Hood?
By Robin Hood?
None.
I know I have had some, so definitely Robin Hood's been in them. But let's think, probably about 3 or 4. About
3 or 4. Okay.
I know where you're going. That your good point is that it becomes the butt of everyone's joke, and so to me that it's like I want to try and find another angle. It's so yeah, it is definitely being involved in them, and I suppose in the neobanking space, I've probably taken the mickey out of more the neobanks. So you think about like the Revoluts of this world. I've been and the Daves and others. I've probably been more hard on them than I have been on Robinhood. Maybe there's a reason. I think this is it. I'll come away from this and say, let's do one on Robinhood as
I mean, there's so much to do on Robinhood.
Yeah.
and never call them Robinhood. There's something to do on the hood.
Under the hood. You mean
under the hood or the hood? I mean, the hood is such a, you can take it within the crypto context, of the hoodies, and then you have Robinhood, the hood.
Or robbing the hood, like robbing the neighborhood. How about that? There you go, another angle.
How about that? So, these are brainstorming sessions. Maybe your next project should be to train some baby Ians and have people brainstorm, like Kathy Wood at ARK Invest used to do that. That's how I met her back in 2015, because she had these open research sessions. And of course, if you qualified, you could attend and listen to the researchers discussing and participate. So maybe
interesting.
It's a very interesting, and typically they wanted people that were completely unrelated to the topic. So they might be talking about what will happen in electric vehicles, and I come in and I have no idea about that sector, or it can be somebody from food, but people that are either entrepreneurs or in research, but come from a very different angle. So if you were to grow and mentor a group of baby Ians, they should be not from finance, not from telco, but discuss with them and brainstorm with them. And I'm sure they will give you, tons of ideas just by.
Well, they should come surfing or paddleboarding with me. I'd love to have some people join me on that. It'd be fun.
Yeah. So that's an idea. Ian, thank you so much. It was really a lot of fun to discuss with you, a lot of insights. And as I said, I will share your links, and our followers, our audience can find you in all the platforms that we will share.
Well, I think it's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.